How did the Nazi Party develop 1920 to 1923? The swastika today, seen in the middle of this first slide, represents the Nazi Party and its leader Adolf Hitler. Hitler chose this symbol because it was eye-catching, iconic and symbolised the power that he wanted his Nazis to have. The white of the circle stood for nationalism, the red background stood for the workers of Germany. The actual black swastika was chosen because it was anti-Semitic, anti-Jewish, and it stood for the victory of the pure German, Aryan man. Today, it symbolises pure evil. So, how did the Nazi Party develop in the early formative years of 1920 to 23? It was certainly not a well-planned and glorious start, but more one of stumbling and learning through the chaotic early years of the Weimar Republic. Hitler had fought bravely in the trenches for Germany during the First World War. By 1919 he was still relatively a young man, age 30, but he hated what Germany had become. He hated the Weimar Republic. He was a right-wing nationalist who wanted Germany to be great again. He hated the attempt at true democracy that the Weimar Republic was trying to do. Germany for him needed strong leadership. He favoured dictatorship and the return to a very militaristic Germany. Hitler was angry for many reasons, as we will see in the next slide. But firstly, Hitler was influenced by the Italian fascist dictator Mussolini, who came to power through the March to Rome military coup in 1922. In the early years, 1920 to 1923, Hitler realised he was a very good public speaker, very persuasive, and he had four main ideas, four standard themes. He spoke with anger and passion, and many of Germany's youth, disillusioned by the Weimar Republic and the aftermath of World War I, decided they would follow him. We can outline these in 4 points. Number 1, the Dolchstoß. Hitler talked how Germany had been stabbed in the back at the end of the First World War by having to admit war guilt for a war they had not solely started. This was Article 231, the war guilt clause. Number 2, he spoke of his disgust at the Treaty of Versailles 1919. Remember from your previous learning, Germany had been punished severely in terms of reduction of their military, financial terms, war reparations being paid to the Allies, and through a reduction in the size of Germany, territorial terms. The people who had signed the Treaty of Versailles on behalf of Germany, the politicians and ex-military generals, were now known as the November criminals. Hitler played on the emotions of the German people through these hard times of 1920 to 23 by blaming the Weimar Republic and the November criminals for signing the Treaty of Versailles and putting Germany in the state that it was in. The fourth reason was the communist-Jewish conspiracy that Hitler believed was out to destroy Germany. He was scapegoating and blaming a common enemy. He believed that the communist and the Jewish people in Germany were out to bring down Germany. An example of this for him was the 1919 Spartacist attempted putsch. Hitler appealed to all Aryan Germans. So, the German Workers' Party. It was formed in 1919. Out of the political chaos that existed, the first leader was called Anton Drexler. The German Workers' Party stood for Deutsche Arbeiter Party, the German Workers' Party. It was right-wing and very nationalistic. It believed in the idea of Volkisch, which means the pure German Aryan race, above everybody else. It had socialist ideas as well, i.e. the sharing of company profits and a classless society being established. In 1919, it had 50 members, so it started very small. September 1919, Hitler joined. He soon showed what a powerful speaker he was, based on the 4 points we've already covered. In February 1920, the 25-point programme was developed. This was the focal point of the party's actions, or desired actions. It was quite controversial. It wanted a union of all Germans to form a greater Germany. In Hitler's mind was a Third Reich, an empire that would last for 1,000 years. It obviously wanted the Treaty of Versailles abandoned and reversed. Any non-German who had entered Germany after 1914 was to be banished. In effect, it was creating a new Reich, a new empire, putting the programme into effect. Anyone who was non-German was threatened. The words national and socialist were also added in front of the DAP. This made the word National Social Deutsche Arbeiter Party, the National Socialist German Workers' Party, abbreviated to the Nazis. Hitler became the Führer by July 1921. The party were now aggressive and quite militaristic and violent in their outlook. An example of this was in 1921 they developed a paramilitary wing, the Sturmabteilung, the SA, led by Ernst Röhm. Again, in this picture here, you can see how eye-catching and iconic the brown shirts looked. That was their name, the brown shirts, carrying the swastikas. They would appeal to the disillusioned youth going through economic and political hard times of the early years of the Weimar Republic, wanting a return to a greater Germany, when Germany was on the map and a proud nation. The brown shirts were based on Mussolini's private army, the black shirts, again showing the influence of Mussolini on Hitler. In the early formative years, the Nazis disrupted many political meetings of the Social Democratic and Communist parties. They were to do roughly the same in 1923 November, when they tried a military coup or putsch, the Munich Putsch, which we'll come on to next. Again, Hitler treated the Jews with contempt. He blamed them for the hard times of Germany post-war. By November 1923, with the French invasion of the Ruhr, because Germany weren't paying their reparations, and the start of hyperinflation as a result of this, Hitler planned to seize control of Bavaria, or Munich, through a march through Munich and on to Berlin, again modelled on Mussolini's actions the year before in 1922. He planned to topple the weak Weimar Republic and form a Nazi government. It's fair to say he misjudged this. The Munich Putsch happened for many reasons. In history, there's never just one single cause, there's always a multitude of reasons. Here is an image of Hitler celebrating the anniversary of the Munich Putsch in the beer hall in Munich, where it began. A beer hall is like a big beer cellar. The causes were that Hitler hated the Weimar Republic and simply wanted to bring it down. He was humiliated that the French had reoccupied the Ruhr, an industrialised area of Western Germany on the border of France and Belgium. The Weimar had disgraced itself in his eyes, and he believed people across Germany would follow him if he was to lead an uprising in Munich and then on to Berlin. He detested the Treaty of Versailles, as already discussed. He believed this putsch would remove the terms of the treaty eventually. The Nazi Party was growing, and therefore Hitler and the Nazis were growing in confidence to take action. General Ludendorff, an ex-army commander-in-chief, an extremely popular figure away from the November criminals, was also supporting Hitler. This gave him individual confidence. And the Sturmabteilung would be used as a private army. The plan was that Hitler was to disturb and upset an important meeting in Bavaria in a beer cellar, where General von Kahr and other leaders of Bavaria, Munich, would be. He would take them captive, win their support, and then form an uprising on to the Munich headquarters, the army headquarters and government headquarters, and then on to Berlin. He believed Germany was ripe for this sort of revolution. Here is an image of the leaders of the Munich Putsch, 1923, and there is the beer cellar where it all began. It didn't go to plan though, the actual events. 600 Nazis, although they seized control of the beer cellar in Munich, they misjudged the loyalty of the three main Bavarian leaders who they had taken at gunpoint. Of course, they would support Hitler under gunpoint, but for some bizarre reason they were released and allowed to leave. The three men, led by General von Kahr, changed their minds and organised troops and police to resist Hitler's march to Munich. 16 Nazis were killed and 4 police officers opposing the Nazis were killed. Hitler was imprisoned, but this helped him. He became well known. He had a 5-year prison term, reduced to 9 months, but he served 9 months. Remember, during the Weimar Republic, the judges were very right-wing in their outlook and sympathised towards people or politicians like Hitler. So, the Munich Putsch was not successful. It failed, and there was no Nazi government put into place. The Weimar Republic survived, and 1924 to 1929 was actually years of stability for the Weimar Republic. However, lessons had been learnt from the Putsch. Hitler had been turned into a celebrity, and this no doubt helped him to gain power later by 1932. This picture shows some of the SA led by Himmler, a man who was to become very prominent in the future Nazi government, at a barricade during the Putsch. Back to Hitler. During his time in prison, he reflected and decided he needed a new strategy. He would have to gain power the political way. There was no other way. The Putsch had failed. He believed that during his trial he could attack the Weimar Republic, the Jewish Bolshevist betrayal of Germany. People were sympathetic with his ideas, and he reached national newspapers. Like mentioned, he became famous. And during his time in Landsberg prison, he wrote his autobiography, Mein Kampf, where he outlined the future of the Nazi Party and his ambition. Again, this slide sums up the Munich Putsch and the outcome. Firstly, the only way to get power was to stand in elections properly and become the leader of Germany that way. Secondly, he realised he needed the support of the army and the business community. He had failed in his attempt to do so with General von Kahr in Bavaria. And Mein Kampf became his Bible for the Nazi Party, the cornerstone for future action. In his book Mein Kampf, Hitler believed that he had to abolish the Treaty of Versailles, as already mentioned, eliminate all Jews from Germany, create Lebensraum or living space for the German people, a greater Germany, and Volksgemeinschaft means a people's community, where the strongest German race would overcome and dominate the weaker German race. To conclude, between 1924 and 1929, Hitler became more of a strategic thinker in his quest to bring down the Weimar Republic. Sometimes in life you make mistakes and reflect upon them. The Munich Putsch was a mistake, but it was a learning process, and it enabled the Nazis to take stock, led by Hitler, and plan a different way to rise to power. This is what happened during Hitler's imprisonment, 1924. I hope this sums up the formative years of the Nazi Party, 1920 to 1923.